Hi, I'm Megan, and welcome to today's live reading of An Accidental Flatmate by Jennifer Rains, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me. Chapter 1. The lock clicked, instant relieved. Casildo pushed open Anna Turner's temporary vacation apartment door, vacant being the only word that mattered. He stepped into the fully furnished, light-filled central Sydney with car park apartment belonging to his best friend Hunter's newly wedded wife. Thank you, Jedity. Cass believed blessings came from his dead grandma, so it only seemed fair to invoke her name. Anna and Hunter had flown off to their honeymoon destination this morning. Cass hadn't planned to accept Hunter's offer to stay in Anna's apartment. In fact, he had said no thanks. But circumstances and a plea from his older sister had made finding immediate accommodation urgent. He chuckled. Luckily, Hunt had given him a key. Tonight, he'd bought a hold-all with a few essentials. Tomorrow, he'd collect the rest of his gear. The apartment had been largely empty since Hunt and Anna's whirlwind romance meant Anna stayed mostly at Hunt's apartment, so the rich perfume of melted chocolate teasing his nostrils was unexpected. Amazing how scents could linger, how the olfactory system could play tricks on you. Anna's go-to comfort drink was hot chocolate. Cass ambled down the corridor, the scent growing stronger with each step. At the lounge room door, he stopped. Beatriz Gomez. But not Beatriz Gomez as he'd ever seen her in the 5 years since they'd met at an industry function. The scrupulously neat and professional advertising account manager always looked stylish, alluring rather than conventionally beautiful, but tonight she'd curled up in the corner of a sofa in a multicolored, free-flowing caftan-type outfit. Her closed eyes and dreamy expression told him her earbuds blocked extraneous sound. Cass's arrival fell in the category of extraneous noise. Her hands were wrapped around a cup, hot chocolate. Good to know his sense of smell was still reliable. This version of Beatrice begged to be touched, cuddled, really, but they'd never been on those sort of terms. Cass had never thought of her in those terms until today. Okay, I've had the occasional fantasy. What guy with a pulse wouldn't? Beatriz was an appealing combination of lush curves, dark coloring, and charm, although her aura of not available had become a silent roar in the last few years. Happy couples like Hunter and Anna signaled not available, but with Beatriz, he had never heard a whisper of a boyfriend, girlfriend, lover, and they worked in a field where gossip spread faster than a new virus. Given I'm not looking, not available works for me. Beatrice, he called. No reaction. Not a flicker of an eyelid did she register his presence. He grinned, although her presence was a problem. She was one of Anna's closest friends. Had she stopped by to check the place was secure and stayed for a hot drink? She looked remarkably settled for a casual drop-in. He moved directly in front of her and raised his voice. Beatrice! Her eyes shot open, the hand holding her drink jerked, upending the contents. She cried out and shot to her feet simultaneously. Her toenails were rainbow colored, as in one yellow, one green, one purple, and so on. He'd never be able to look at her regulation short boots the same way again. What the? She tugged the earbuds from her ears. Sorry, he held up his hands in surrender. Is something wrong? Has something happened to Anna and Hunter? His expression leapfrogged shock and hurtled toward concern. As far as I know, they're flying off into the wide blue yonder, not a care in the world. She was holding her stained, no longer floaty garment away from her torso, her forehead crinkling into a frown. Then why did you break in? I didn't break in. He held up his key. Hunt offered the place to me. She shook her head vigorously backward and forward. Anna gave me first dibs. Ah, Hunt hadn't mentioned alternative options for the apartment. To be honest, Cass hadn't asked if Hunter and Anna had offered the apartment to anyone else. When Cass refused it, just assumed it would be empty. Her jaw set stubbornly. So you'd better go back where you came from. Can't. What do you mean you can't? Anna told me you're staying with your parents. Did you ask Anna about my living arrangements? The idea started an interesting train of thought. Here and now, Cass, here and now. Technically speaking, I was on my parents' property, but my older sister, Maha, lent me her granny flat. She asked for it back, effective immediately. Actually, she had begged him. Why immediately? I don't ask my sister about her sex life. Maha had looked slightly desperate after Saturday night's date with Antonio, the widowed father of two adolescents. Cass guessed, but hadn't asked outright that Maha and Antonio had both filed romance in the too hard basket for years ago, and now they wanted a little alone time to explore possibilities. Jadati's old flat, private interest, and hidden at the bottom of his parents' leafy garden worked for a romantic tryst. Cass hadn't tested the possibilities in his 6 months resident in his sister's home. It's not the first time she's asked. I can't say no to her again. Can't you go back to wherever you were staying before that? No. Cass had surrendered the lease on his rented apartment and moved the bulk of his worldly goods into storage when he handed every cent he could to his father. The Harari family had found itself in the situation of being wealthy on paper and cash poor. Cass's entire savings and then some went into trying to save the Harari building, the flagship of his father's company, from a hostile takeover. In the end, Hunt had saved the building, but until Casildo's father finalized the sale of some commercial property in regional towns, refinanced and returned Cass's money, Cass's plans for his textiles design business and new apartment were on pause. Soon now. I need my own space, he added. That's not a reason. I was here first. She crossed her arms and the damp fabric stuck to her midriff. Until we compare phone messages or can reach Hunt and Anna, we don't know who they asked first. Cass had been best friends with Hunter since childhood. His claim had to be stronger. If they asked you first, you must have said no for them to offer it to me. She used irrefutable logic, but the tilt of her set head suggested doubt. Did you refuse? She stared at him out of stormy eyes, more chestnut than chocolate in color, reflecting her intelligence and warmth. Beatriz's eyes deserved intensive study, dark and light at the same time. In all the years he had known her, he'd never just stared into her eyes. It's rude to stare. He'd absorbed that message before he was knee-high to his father. Not that it really seemed to apply to the people who stared at his family. Her gaze usually reflected endless serenity. I've got this, it seemed to say. Today's mini mutiny revealed her as disarmingly human. Initially, she was uncomfortable with lying as an important quality in a friend, but Anna gave me a key. Snap. Cass clicked his fingers. So, I can't go back, and you should change into something dry before you do. I can't go home either. Her arms dropped to her sides. The caftan stopped short on the floor, and her toes peeped out from beneath it. Cute toes on cute feet. Irrelevant, Cass. But the hint of desperation in her soft contralto stopped him. Okay, well, I'm guessing you still want to change. She nodded. I'll make some more hot chocolate while you do, and then we can start this conversation again. Fine, but I'm not going. She walked around him and out the door. He registered three things. At industry functions, Cass was aware of her competence. Today she wore some delicate floral scent that emphasized her femininity. The apartment had two bedrooms. If she'd taken Anna's old bedroom, the second bedroom near the back of the apartment was free, and life might be about to get very interesting. Beatrice cursed fate, Anna, Hunter, her parents, her sisters, and lastly herself. She'd had a crush on Casaldo Harari since she'd first met him at a loud, crowded marketing industry function. A few weeks into her job, he'd gone out of his way to make her feel welcome and included. He didn't jostle for attention, but had an innate authority, a sense of certainty about who and what he was. A crush she'd ruthlessly wrestled into professional camaraderie, especially after her father's accident 2 years ago. Thank heavens they didn't work for the same company. Casildo, in small doses, was manageable, and his old jeans, washed out sweater, and hair longer than usual, brushing his shoulders, he made her mouth water. He was more attractive than in his work outfit of chinos and linen shirts, more tempting even than he'd been in his tuxedo at Anna and Hunter's wedding. She pulled her caftan over her head and changed into jeans and a cardigan set, work casual rather than her lounge around home clothes. Then she tugged on socks and short boots. She tugged on the socks and short boots she arrived in. Camouflage, but necessary camouflage for a conversation she had to win. When she emerged from Anna's old bedroom, Casaldo was in an armchair. His hair was tied back with some kind of leather thong, long enough to trail around the side of his neck. Bea had told herself looking was allowable. Lust was forbidden, especially since he never looked, said, or touched her in any way remotely unprofessional. Friendly? Yes. Sleazy? No. Interested? Once upon a time, she had wished. Right now, he looked chastened, cautious, good. He disturbed her peace. She'd been enjoying her newfound freedom, enjoying having a whole sofa to herself rather than finding it full of sisters who'd become demanding witches while her back was turned, blaming her for losing a promotion she had deserved. Cass had cleaned up the mess and placed a fresh cup of hot chocolate on the table in front of the sofa where Bea had been sitting. Her irritation faded. Thanks for cleaning up. My fault you had the spill. He did that, did menial tasks when other males insisted on their consequence. Yet Casildo controlled final approval for artwork at the marketing company where he worked. Apparently, he had an eye for matching the mood to the product, for exquisite balance between color and movement, for creating excitement. How on earth do I convince him to go away? Can't you move into your parents' house? Her first salvo. No. He also had a reputation for easygoing politeness, no backstabbing or messy office politics. Patient and endlessly reasonable until you cross the line. Or so she'd heard. From all accounts, you love your family. Did Anna tell you that too? In 5 years, Casito, you've mentioned them fondly on various occasions. A man who cared for his parents might understand Bee's sacrifices for hers, and by all accounts, Casito cared for his parents. Unlike the last guy she semi-seriously dated, he'd ghosted her pretty darn fast after her father's accident. Okay, I respect and love them, but if I lived with them, someone would die. Cramp your social life, would they? I'm cramping my hush social life by occupying her flat. She's got a bloke. Anna's boss, Antonio? You probably knew before me, he growled, looking at the ceiling before he seemed to reach a conclusion. I moved back home for a specific reason. The situation has changed enough, so I'm superfluous at home, but I need a bit more time to organize a rental. I know what you earn, Bea blurted out the words and then scrambled to reclaim the upper hand. After all, we work in the same industry. Although he hadn't actually said money was the issue with the rental. I'm projecting because I can't begin to imagine that luxury. Not for 2 years at least. But questions ricocheted in her head. Back when she first met Casito, someone had whispered that he came from wealth and mentioned an apartment in the residential part of the central business district, although he'd moved back home by the time Anna met Hunter. Anna had been vague about why, something about his father needing help. Bea was intimate with the fear you breathed when a beloved parent was ill. Illness could bleed a family's bank account dry. Casito had moved home to help. She had never left. Bully for you. I've got a rough idea of what you earn, and you're sitting here telling me you want free rent enough to fight me for it, he said with a scowl, clearly unhappy. He'd told her as much as he had. To be fair, finding a decent rental at short notice in Sydney was like entering a bull ring unprotected. Bodies littered the arena. I didn't get the promotion. Jackson Smithers did. B revealed the name of the colleague who'd brought the situation at home to a head. Alama, he's a jerk. You're worth 6 of him. What idiot promoted him? His defense was so unexpected she almost dropped her cup a second time. Jackson's quick to announce other people's ideas and pretend innocence when challenged. Bea had thought Jackson's co-opting of other people's ideas was the result of enthusiasm until she started to see a deliberate pattern. But you have no smoking gun. In an office where sharing ideas is part of their creative muscle, plagiarism is hard to prove. Plus, he takes advantage of being tall, white, and male to undermine harder working men, women, and this daughter of Chilean refugees. She stumbled to a halt. She hadn't shared her suspicions with anyone. No positive discrimination in your workplace. Only at entry level. She couldn't hide her indignation. For promotion, we believe in mediocrity. Meritocracy. Funny what that delivers. Jackson stole your ideas. Casido believed her, and relief rolled through her. Yes, get another job. In the current climate, I'd have to take a pay cut to start over with someone else. Jackson has a mile-wide streak of meanness he hides from management, and I don't trust him not to gaslight me. In her head, she'd already committed the extra income from her promotion to covering the upcoming increase in her parents' veritable mortgage rate. Tomorrow, she'd be back to looking at ads for waitress or bar staff. Jackson's won. What's his gripe with you? He studied her, his assessment far too male, and she resisted the instinct to check that a button in a strategic location hadn't come undone. Did you refuse to go to bed with him? He didn't get that far. She snapped at the injustice of Jackson's vindictiveness. For Pete's sake, I refused to drink with him. Let's rewind. What did missing out on a promotion have to do with you deciding to flee your family home? His voice had dropped, deepened, and was mesmerizing in its gentle encouragement. Tell Uncle Cass all about it. You're not my uncle. But I am an uncle and a brother. I know how to keep secrets. There are three Harari children, four when you include Hunt. We include Hunt. We adopted him, unofficially. He arrived last. Two girls, then me. Second sister married with two ankle biters. I can get references. I saw you with them at Hunter and Anna's wedding. They were the flower children. They looked adorable. He had been adorable with them. I've never seen them so excited. He settled back in the armchair, prepared to outwait her. My sisters were angry, furious enough to blame Bea for not doing enough to win the promotion when she had devoted hours to crafting a presentation Jackson had somehow seen in advance and stolen. Fran, her youngest sister's exact words were, "It's your job to support Mama and Papa." Neither of them had shown the slightest bit of sympathy, much less empathy, while Bea's plans crumbled around her, and something inside of Bea had snapped. Why just her job? I'm angry, and I'm not your nearest and dearest. Bea had never bad-mouthed her family, had thought nothing and no one could ever encourage her to voice the frustration that had grown from a niggle to a howl. But she had never faced a dreamy-looking Casildo Harari smiling sympathetically at her. They're angry because they had plans for the extra money. He simply stared at her. How old are they? He asked finally. 18 and nearly 20. They're at university. And intent on living life to the fullest, experiencing all that university has to offer, unlike Bea, who attended classes and tutorials before taking every hospitality shift she could get. How many hours a week do they work? They're looking for jobs, or so they said. You're providing pocket money for your sisters. He was matter of fact, not shocked or staring at her as if she'd lost her mind. Migrant families had complicated relationships in a new world and are weaving obligations that stretched across lifetimes. Although, unlike her, Casido had been born here. I'm working and living at home, so of course I pay board to my parents, and some of that trickles into my sister's pockets. Bea was happy with the explanation, part truth, part understatement of the century. She had no intention of telling Casita Harari that as long as she was contributing to her parents' mortgage, key money for a rental apartment was a distant fantasy for her. Why are you still living at home? None of your business. Sorry, I shouldn't have asked that, but it looks like we both need a little respite from our families and don't have the cash ready to pay for it.